homeowner association neighbor insisted I must let her use my pool and called the police on me when I refused. Here is what happened. Subscribe to Ripe on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. When my husband and I bought the house of our dreams, I really did not expect it to turn into such an annoying nightmare. But at least we have a satisfying ending to some degree. We finally found a beautiful home with a truly fabulous in-ground pool with a hot tub. It was so nice and I had always wanted a pool and was so happy to have one. That is until I realized that I was not the only person who was in love with the pool. It was only about a week into us living there, it was midsummer and the pool was sparkly and clean and ready to go. I was getting ready to take a dip when one of the residents of the neighborhood to the south of my house came walking up to the sidewalk towards my yard. You see, our home is located just in front of a neighborhood that is governed by an HOA. I'm not the only house like this either. There are about 5 homes that are built along the main road and the neighborhood's entrance is next to us, leading to the houses behind us. A sidewalk leads north to south, running parallel to the eastern portion of my property. This woman introduced herself as Becky and said that she was good friends with the sellers. She was cordial at first and there was a strong smell of alcohol on her breath, but I did not necessarily suspect any manipulation at play until she made a comment about her old friends, letting them use the pool and how awesome they were for doing that. I felt a little uncomfortable, as if she was asking me to let her go swimming with me right now. I told her that I was only doing a few laps and that I would be going back in to cook dinner soon. She laughed and said that she would not bother me and went to open my side gate to come in. It was at that moment that I realized she was already wearing a bathing suit underneath her dress. I did not know what to say and stammered like an idiot as I watched her walk into my pool and start swimming around. My social anxiety got the better of me and I went inside to get my husband Andy. He was confused and at first did not believe me when I said that there was a random woman in our pool. Andy went outside and Becky started doing her introduction and thanked him for letting her use the pool. He eventually managed to get the point across that we did not want her there and she said that she would leave. Not before she made it super awkward and almost flashed my husband accidentally. Andy and I were both pretty concerned about that interaction and how casually this woman just barged onto our property. A few days later I came home one afternoon from work and headed straight upstairs to change into my bathing suit. It was a super hot day and I was eager to get into the pool and have a margarita for a nice cool down. When I went downstairs, I noticed male voices outside in the backyard. I immediately grew concerned and peeked out my back door. There were several teenage boys in my yard and pool. They were just hanging out using my inflatables and sitting on my lawn chairs like it was one of their own homes. I grabbed the baseball bat that my husband keeps at the garage door and headed outside. When the boys saw me, they all started laughing, practically teasing me and asking if I was supposed to be scary. Then I noticed the beer cans that they had sitting at the pool's edge. There was no way they were old enough to drink yet. I told them they needed to leave right away or I would be calling the police. They very rudely asked if they could stay for a little longer, saying that they used to be friends with the kids that lived there and they would be sure to clean up afterwards. One of the teens even said that his mom would be willing to pay for the maintenance on the pool. I told him I did not care about maintenance money or what any of them wanted and that they needed to get the hell out of my pool immediately. The boys did as I said finally, but not before one of them poured his beer into my pool. I was shaking with anger and remembered that a house last night was having some loud obnoxious party in their yard and I wonder if it was them. When I told my husband what had happened, he said that he was going to call and set up a company to have a privacy fence put up around our house as soon as possible. That same day I got a knock at the door. It was Becky. She smelled like alcohol again, but this time she had a nasty scowl on her face. She said that she heard from her sons that I had not let them use the pool. When I told her that they had come onto our property without permission or us even being home, she just laughed and said that this was normal for our house. Becky thought that we should essentially allow public access and use an open door policy when it comes to the neighborhood. She even said that if we joined the HOA, that they would pay us for the usage and maintenance of the pool. I said that I was not interested and would rather not do that. Plus, the insurance would be unimaginable. The conversation did not end well, as Becky smiling and near begging did not work. By the way, Ripe Star, sorry for the weird text there. I think I got something mixed up in Word when I was correcting some grammar mistakes. Anyway, everyone left us alone for a few days and we set up the appointment for the fence to be built, but not soon enough. One morning we came downstairs to have coffee, and when my husband went to let our little dog outside, he saw that the pool had a ton of trash floating around in it. It was dirty old red Solo cups, confetti, pizza, and God knows what else. There was silly string that had been sprayed all over our lawn furniture and pool, clogging the filter. It was a frickin' huge mess. It took all day to clean and we had to take apart the pool filter to get it working again. Thankfully, my husband is an engineer. Becky came by again and gasped like she did not expect to see our pool trash like that. She made a snide comment about how she can have her sons and their friends come help clean it up, but she knows they will want to use it afterwards. So she leaves laughing to herself like a villain. At this point, we began preparing for war. My husband started setting up security cameras around the entire exterior of the house, with several of them extra being directed at the backyard. We were pretty suspicious that Becky would buy her kids and their friends alcohol, and probably more than that. So if we could catch them doing said illegal crap, then maybe we could get some revenge on this entitled bee. I waited for Becky to show up again. I knew she would. She cannot seem to help herself. I told her that my husband and I were sorry for being such snobs about the pool, and that if she and her sons wanted to use it, that it would be fine. As a matter of fact, we were leaving town that weekend, so it would be a perfect opportunity for them to have a fun party. She was elated and of course wanted to take us up on the offer. Hubby and I got ourselves a hotel and waited for them to commence their partying. It didn't take long for the teens to start inviting over a dozen kids their age and younger, all drinking and smoking and doing drugs. I'll admit that it made me sad to see them trashing the pool, not to mention one of the boys stood there and peed in it. Anyway, after hours of recording the underage drinking and drug use, we finally called the police. It was only a matter of time before they showed up and crashed the party. When we got back home, we saw that there were almost half a dozen cop cars outside of Becky's house. We found out through the grapevine that she had been arrested and put on probation for supplying alcohol to underage minors. Her sons were arrested for having drugs and suspended from their school programs. I felt a little bad, but maybe everyone learned their lesson about not bullying their neighbors. The next one is titled The Greatest Petty Revenge. After my mother died in 1970, my father decided that we had to move to an upper middle class neighborhood in the Bronx. We took over the apartment of my recently deceased great uncle. As the Bronx was literally burning, my building became wealthier and wealthier. There was one SOB who ticked me off more than I can express. My dad was legally blind and living on a disability pension. While all around us had money, my brother and I had nothing. A place to sleep and basic meals, everything else was up to us. One winter day in early February, there was a monstrous blizzard. More than 20 inches of snow. My building was right next to a heavily used service lane which joined a highway. When the plows came through, that 20 inches of snow more than doubled on the parked cars on the street. My brother bought 3 shovels and told me that we are going to make big money. We even cut school that day. During the 1970s, New York City schools would never close during the snowstorm. Nothing short of nuclear war, and then I'm not so sure, would cause schools to be closed. I called my friend Mitch to join us. Our plan was to dig out cars on the street. The first 2 cars we dug out for $15. Each car took us about an hour. To a 12-year-old and 2 10-year-olds, this was money from heaven. Then a neighbor saw us digging out the cars and asked us to dig him out. His car was especially buried because it seemed that every plow in the world pushed snow on his car. It took us more than 2 hours to dig out the car. It was an extremely large black Lincoln Continental. For anybody that doesn't know, that was a high-end boat of a car. When we were done and expecting to get paid, he gave us a you-know-what-eating grin, got in his car and drove away. Not a penny. Mitch and I are at the point of tears, but my brother literally wanted to commit murder. That night, my brother woke me up and told me his plan. He saw the bastard's car parked right in front of the building in a spot we cleared for another neighbor. My brother and I, past midnight, took our shovels and buried the car. After about half an hour or so, we stopped and got several buckets of warm water from the laundry room covering under the snow. It was 10 degrees, so the water froze the snow quickly. Then we proceeded to bury it some more, rinse and repeat. I wish I had a picture showing the mountain of snow covering his car. After about 3 hours, we went back to an exhausted sleep. The next morning we looked out our window and saw him cursing up a storm. I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed the look on our beloved neighbor's face. After a few days, the city restored normal parking regulations, so I got the good idea to take a tool like a picnic and dig out the spot on his car that would show his license plate. It took me almost 2 hours to do that. Every day he got a parking ticket. It took at least 10 days to get his car out, and the next year was another blizzard and we repeated the same action. A few years later, my brother took a steel wool pad and scrubbed the wheel wells off that Continental and as much as the underside of the car as he could reach. He and I did that for several years every few months. That wonderful Lincoln rotted out. We once overheard him complain to the doorman how Ford makes crappy cars. Of course he bought another Lincoln, which we repeated. He was a multi-millionaire and could easily pay for the indoor garage parking, but he was cheap. One time we found out that he cheated a maid out of her pay and threatened to call immigration on her. How low can a man get? Even when we went to college and finally moved out, whenever we returned home, we would do anything we could drive the said beloved neighbor nuts. That look and laugh on his face when he stiffed 3 preteens was never forgotten. Our hearts hardened whenever we heard through the grapevine other disgusting things that he did. Losing his delivered New York Times, dog crap outside his apartment, misdirected deliveries sent to the neighboring building, putting dead animals in the trunk of his car, cutting his internet cable, you name it, we did it. Once Mitchell returned to visit his grandmother, he was in the army and had the pleasure of experiencing Desert Storm. He came home and did some stuff that I really am not going to put down, nothing illegal, but I would not like to have been Mr. Cheap-Ass MF. Finally, around 2008, we stopped. Through the grapevine, we found out that he developed dementia. To me, that was punishment enough, and when he died, his son and daughter did not even attend the funeral. The only one at his funeral were several people from his office. I'm sure they only attended because they were paid somehow. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm not even sure if this is really petty revenge. For me, it kind of goes a step further. Please let me know in the comments what you think about this story. Do you think that the people in the story went too far, or was it just right? Let us know in the comments. The next one is titled Chicken Revenge. Decades ago, we boarded our horse at a local staple. It is on the National Register of Historical Places. It dates to before the Revolution. It sadly has shrunk to the urbanized suburbia tiki-taki, but I digress. Across the street lived a pompous banker who held some high and almighty place in some bank. His speciality seemed to be swiping road signs as his garage was tiled with them. Again, I digress. One fine day, one of the horses got out, crossed the road and was contentedly grazing on the grass. Mind you, it had done no damage up until that point. Instead of calling the stable owners, he waves his hands and shouts, causing the horse to get the wind up, raise its tail and sprint around Banker's yard, making several laps. Of course, doing so, it tore up some grass clouds here and there. I don't know if the horse vacated the premises, but eventually it was returned to its domicile. Mr. Banker proceeded to yell at Mr. Stable that he needed to fix his yard. It had better look perfect by the time he got back from some snobby vacation. Well, Mr. Stable fixed the yard. Mr. Banker was too cheap to have the place mowed while he was absent. He was gone almost 3 weeks. So Mr. Stable got some fresh soil, mixed it with chicken and horse poop, filled the holes and sprinkled some grass seed on top. He made sure the spots were watered well. I am not sure what Mr. Banker, holier than thou, thought upon his return, but the unmowed grass was about 6 or 7 inches high, and where the lawn had been fixed, the grass was well over a foot, which of course meant Mr. Banker had to mow the yard more frequently, because those manured spots grew at a faster rate than the rest of the sod. And the next one is titled, I Got Her. So, my ex-stepmother of 10 years was an evil bully that left me and my siblings with some pretty bad self-confidence and depressive issues even to this day, while she herself did everything she could for her 2 daughters in every situation and always sided with them. It went as far as her hitting us for wrongdoings, but not them. My sister has epilepsy and knows when she was about to have an episode, so my ex-stepmom and my dad had 1 or 2 doorbells in their bedroom that she could ring and warn them, and they could make sure she was safe. The second one was unused. When she became the ex-stepmother and her and my dad separated, she stayed in the house whilst finding a new place. Obviously, her and my dad did not sleep together anymore, and when asked to put the other doorbell in her room at night for my sister's safety, she said, "I'm not being woken up by her. She is not my daughter." That day she was dead to me. Up to then the separation was pretty amicable, ended up with her physically assaulting my dad and hacking his emails and dating apps, but after that I was done. More so than even my dad was. So it came time to move and I had the day booked off weeks in advance to help her move stuff into her new apartment, and being a big stocky guy and my dad working that day, it was pretty important that I was there to help her get the heavier things up the stairs to her new place. She did not have a moving company or anything. Cue to me turning my phone off that day and driving 30 miles away to spend the day by myself shopping and having a nice meal. I have not spoken to her for 15 years after that. The next one is titled, Revenge on the Evil Witch. I knew right from the start before we even married that my mother-in-law is gonna create trouble for us. She had this personality that just screams, entitled Karen. My mother-in-law is a, let's say, difficult lady and likes to create problems out of nothing. Then she likes to play the victim if I show any sort of reaction. Today I just quietly reacted with the support of my husband. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter, my in-laws love having her visit, and truly I don't mind. My mother-in-law is great with the grandbabies. I try to keep their house stocked with everything they may need, including pull-ups, wipes, clothes, etc. Recently though, my mother-in-law has been complaining that she has no clothes for my daughter. I was a little confused because I brought a diaper box filled with her latest size only a month or 2 ago, but I assumed maybe it has just slowly made its way to my house and I didn't notice. Last week my daughter showed up in 18-month Santa pajamas. I did not say anything, but mother-in-law states she is wearing those because she has nothing else. Again, confused, but I let it go. Today we dropped off my daughter for a weekend camping trip with the in-laws, and I packed another diaper box filled with clothes and decided I would pop in and take a look at what all was in the dresser they have for her. Thinking I'll go through and take home whatever is too small now. So many clothes, like you cannot even close the drawers. Confusion amplifies. I calmly walk out with a dozen or more pairs of pants and ask, just out of curiosity, why do you keep saying you have no clothes? Is there something wrong with these? They are her size and definitely fit, so is it that you just find them ugly or something? she immediately gets super snippy and defensive and says that yes, some of them are not the nicest. They are also stained up and I keep taking home all the nice ones. Keep in mind, I supply and buy all the clothes, so to me they are all nice and all have not seen the light of day. So definitely no stains. So then I ask what she wants me to do with them. Does she want to keep them or should I bring them home? My husband did not even wait for a response and told me to pack them up since they are not good enough for mother-in-law. So I did just that. I packed up 2 bags worth of clothes and brought them home. So now she has just enough for their camping trip. I am done playing whatever game she is playing. She can get her own clothes if the vast amount I provided is not good enough for her. I will definitely pay for this petty act later, but 10 out of 10 worth it. And yeah guys, if you also have to deal with awful in-laws, then I would very much appreciate if you could share your story in the comments or on r/ripe stories on Reddit, which is our own subreddit. Thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you again tomorrow.